Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to take a look at backcountry skiing, specifically touring Uneva Peak up in the Vail Pass region in Colorado. So right now we have onX backcountry map pulled up. You can see Denver there. And then this already has the CAICs, or Colorado Avalanche Information Center's assessment of avalanche risk pulled up. The orange being considerable and the yellow being moderate. So you can see that our little Vail Pass segment here with my route already planned out is in the considerable area. But let's dive a little bit closer into what the CIC actually was saying. So if you're venturing into the backcountry, you should recognize what this is. Use this to write down all your notes as to the weather and terrain, your plan for the day, and all your debrief points too. So without going through the entire page, just the key things I wrote down in my book before the day when I was planning this route up the couple days before I went up was avalanche risk considerable. The winds and weather are going to be 6 mile an hour from the west, gusting 13, high of 29, mostly cloudy. That all ended up being verified. That was all accurate on that day. And then the primary avalanche risk was standard Colorado P slab, likely size large to very large, and it was even possible below tree line. And they said to be aware of propagation because energy was traveling, especially amongst groups. So to give P slabs wide margins and especially looking for runouts as well. So I marked all the hazards on X. Let's go back to that. So as of right now, this is this really simple look in 2D with my ascent route thrown on there. And that's going to be in the bright pink starting from the Vail Pass trailhead. And then you can try to ignore these purple lines. Those are automatically populated by onX as routes other people have plotted in there. Like I said, mine's neon pink, with the yellow hazard and red hazard being areas I wanted to mark as higher degree terrain, as in like above 30 degrees, and where I want to stop and make assessments as to how safe I actually think it might be. So let's go ahead and take a look at the slope angle. We'll turn that on, and then we'll also turn on our 3D mode, so we'll actually get somewhat of a skier's view of what this would look like. So drove up here, getting set up in the parking lot, making sure all of my gear is in check. I knew I was expecting to be skiing alone today actually, which I know is already means I'm going to be much more conservative in my decision-making process, definitely staying away from abbey terrain. And if I have any bad feeling whatsoever, I'm just going to turn around. I'm going to go to a plan B, whatever it might be. So even if I'm skiing solo, I like to do a beacon check, so I have an old beacon and a new beacon, so you can check that out. Even when I'm going solo, I like to do that. Alright, we're at the trailhead doing a quick check of our beacons. You can see the berry box at 90%, currently in send. My old DTS tracker is currently in send. Let's pop it over to search and see what we're getting. Yep, check if that's working. I'll switch backwards since I'm going to be using this one. I'm going to put that one in send. I'm going to put the DTS into search. And it looks like the berry box is also putting out a good signal. Awesome. Function check complete. So coming back to here, now that I'm getting the rest of my gear set up, let's look at what that is. PowerPoint wizard, there we go. So what I'm going to call my scal, or my standard loadout basically, is I just got a new kit for this year. And this is a bunch of the stuff that I would like to review on my channel, especially since I'm going to be putting quite a few days and miles on these guys. So right now I'm rocking a Black Diamond Helio 95 ski in 176 because I'm about 6 foot. Only 95s underfoot because I want them to be good in variable terrain, especially in Colorado. I'm not going to be skiing powder every backcountry day. More likely it's going to have like wind, crusty, nasty, junky snow. So I want something that's pretty capable in all scenarios. Scans Pacoma Climb Pro S glides. I got a note on those for later in the video. Bindings of the ATK RT10 Evos. Boots, I picked up some last year Models Dalbello Quantum Solo 130s. I definitely have notes about those even just after the first 4 hours in them. The Avi bag is the Black Diamond Jet Force 25 liter, and I'm going to take a note on this one right now. That Jet Force 25 liter, as far as I know, is the only one on the market right now that will actually deflate, which will give you an additional 30 to 35 liters of air potentially behind your head in the case of a full burial in an avalanche. And as of right now, studies are showing that deflating bag is actually expanding your life expectancy in a full burial by about 400%. So instead of starting to asphyxiate at 5 minutes and then passing out, potentially dying and having brain damage at least by 10 minutes, using this bag in a full burial has shown people maintaining breath into 35 to 40 minutes, which is remarkable in how much time that provides rescuers to come get you. So I definitely invested in that bag, and you'll even notice that price tag there. It's the most expensive thing in my gear kit right now, but in my opinion, it's one of the most valuable ones to keep me alive if used appropriately. And then my beacon is the Mammut Berry Vox, not the S version, just the standard. And then for my comms plan, my pace plan, primary is my cell phone. I got onto CalcTopo, checked Vail Pass, always has good cell phone service. I knew that was going to be reliable. Alternate, it's going to be Rocky Talkie radios. Contingencies, the Garmin InReach, because you can still send text messages and communicate in a non-emergency scenario if necessary. And then my absolute last resort is the beacon, hiking in send mode. If something does happen and you aren't able to take any action whatsoever, at least that thing's going to be emitting all the time. So that's my gear. That's my comms plan going into this. Checking all of it out in the parking lot. We're looking good. So let's hope Onyx doesn't glitch out on me too bad here. So this first part of the hike going up to Uneva Ridge is pretty mellow. You just cross I-70, toss your skis on when you get into this tree line down here at the bottom of your screen. And if I can get this to angle up a little bit, you just have a really gradual climb, that green being 20 to 25 degrees. And you can just follow that pink route all the way through this glade, basically. And my plan was to follow this all the way to the base of the main climb. And about halfway through this point, I bumped into two other dudes that were skinning up to Uneva Peak as well. Carter and Drew, they were awesome guys. When we met up, we stopped and we talked about our game plans and how they were going to go about it, how I was going to go about it, because we were both trying to get up to the ridge. And we ended up just making a little group of 3. Like I said, since I was solo at that point, I'll always jump into a group whenever it makes sense. So as we got into this little bend right here, my plan had me going further west and then uphill, and their plan had them going, starting their switchbacks right off of this hairpin turn. And I think that was a good decision-making point for both parties at that point, actually, was that I had planned this out. I was comfortable with my plan. They had their planned out. They were comfortable with theirs. Both of them were viable. Both of them mitigated risks to an appropriate degree. And we actually ended up splitting up for just a little bit. And I think that was a good decision for both parties to make, because we liked both of our plans, and we didn't want to change our plan just because we met someone else on the mountain when we knew that we'd put time and effort into making sure we're going to go do this in a safe manner. Either way, we ended up meeting up right about right here where all 3 of my tracks come back together. The pink tracks were following up. The blue track was my plan for coming down, and the yellow track was my alternate. And this is the point where we dig a snow pit as we're approaching tree line, and you can see the results of that. I recorded them, so we'll take a second and watch that. So once we finished up that snow pit, My plan was to go up along this pink line, like I've said a couple times before, but once we actually got eyes on this terrain, this little convex roller here was fairly loaded. And actually over here in this terrain that I thought was going to be more hazardous based on how steep it is, there was almost no snow up here. It didn't look like it was going to be able to slide. You could see all these down trees and logs and whatnot, and it didn't look like the snow was even deep enough to do a slide. So we didn't mind taking the extra time, and we kind of traversed back to the east, and then we just did switchbacks up this section. And even though that's showing it's in the 35 to 40 degree region, it was relatively safe. As long as we stayed away from the wind drifts behind these trees, we were pretty much good to go. And that's where I bring up the note of those Pacoma skins and my 95 millimeter skis that I'm trying out for the first time on this particular ride, was that on those steeper switchbacks, I got some slipping. I'm not sure if that's the skin's performance just hitting its limit, or if it's because my skis are skinny, a combo of the two most likely, just not having enough surface area to traction. Because Carter and Drew were both wearing like 112s, and they were having no problem just walking uphill in that steeper section. So we had diverted from our line here, so we ended up switchbacking up this deeper section, basically until we go and meet my yellow line that you have in the center of the screen here. And at that point, I have a video where I look back down that basically we're through the crux of the uphill. All the Abbey terrain is below us. There's pretty much nothing above us that can be a hazard. So we're feeling pretty safe at this point. We can stop and take a breath, and then continue our ascent up towards the ridge. At this point, we're just through the crux above all of the potential Abbey terrain. Nothing at the peak and lunch to go. So we get up to about right here, and this is where Drew and Carter stop, because they just want to hit this little powder field that was in here. So they have some lunch, but my goal for the day, if conditions are safe, were to get all the way up to the peak. So I got their phone numbers in case something weird happened. I needed to call them. And then I continued my way up to my objective of actually hitting Uneva Peak. So basically, my plan was just to boot pack along this ridge, staying away from this deeper terrain on either side, obviously. Here's a couple of videos if you want to go ride this route or hike this route, what it might look like. Keeping in mind this is as of 24 January 2024. There's the peak, Uneva. Getting close, getting close. Just boot packing along the safe bits of rock here, staying away from that cornice. Yeah. Just to give you an idea of what the peaks leading up to Uneva are like. This is the first fall summit. It's a decent little scramble. You're definitely not going to be wearing your skis for it. And then you have a fairly flat little traverse, just stick to the rocks. And then heading up to the peak itself, you have a little bit of a scramble, probably like hands and knees, just for stability because it's slippery, your ski boots on. And then once you get about a quarter of the way up that, you'll just be able to hike it straight up with your poles. So just doing a little bit of rock scrambling up this initial peak. It honestly was a little bit bigger than I was expecting it to be, just more prominent, I guess you'd say. Go over that side and then just hike back up to the top, no problem. And then from that peak, you've just got a beautiful view of Vail to the west and the Gore Range north in that direction. And then you got Frisco Lake and Breck to the north. Let's grab this guy, get him centered back up. And then just to note, this really dark purpley mountain in here, there's the 10-mile range. There's a color in there called Coin Slot Color That's a ski mountaineering route that looks pretty rad. There's a mandatory 100-foot rappel into it, so I'll have to keep that in mind for a future date, but probably not this year. And then you turn back around, you can see Copper Mountain right there. So pretty awesome views if you want to come up here and do this one yourself. This is about what it would look like. But once I get up there and have my time, have a snack, storm started to roll in, so I hike back down, and I get down into the exact same area where I dropped off Drew and Carter. And this is where I actually start the fun part of the day, going down this little powder field, if I can get this to cooperate. Cool, there we go. That's what I want. So this is where I hit my kind of like the part of the day where I'm not too happy with my decision-making processes. I'm going to go into 2D here. So I was skiing down my yellow line, ended up drifting over to the skier's right, and I was following tracks, and they basically just came to a dead stop. And that person before me was definitely looking at this steeper, like 40 to 45 degree terrain down here. And this is what I'm not happy with myself for in my personal debrief, is that I knew that this region was going to be orange and red. And I knew the avalanche conditions were considerable, and especially in a convex roller. I definitely should have stayed more skiers left into a little bit shallower terrain. And I definitely should not have stopped at the top of this roller, because if that did slide, there's a terrain trap of these trees right down here. So that's a debrief note for myself that I would like to avoid in the future. But from there, pretty much without incident, I end up skinning back along this line, basically back to the main skin track, pop the skins back on, and then head out to the car. So total trip ended up being, about 6.8 miles. Took me 4 hours at a pretty casual pace. Like I said, throwing a snow pit in there, traveling with Drew and Carter, just taking our time, having snacks and whatnot. So not that big of a day. I think it's pretty achievable for most people that are well versed in hiking and climbing. So in terms of the gear that I use, what do I think of my equipment? Like I mentioned, the 95 skis with those skins might have been a little thin for steep switchback skinning. The Dalbello boots, when I bought them, I heard that they had a pretty bad liner in them. Even though my feet did stay warm, I have about 4 blister spots on each of my feet right now. So I'm either going to have to switch those liners out or just hope they get broken into the shape of my foot. I'll let you know more about that. Fortunately, did not need to utilize my beacon or my bag, but my bag did stay comfortable the whole time. Even though if you pull this thing off the shelf at the store, it feels heavy. Like, it feels like a beefy bag, but it actually hiked and rode really well. And then the ATK RT10 Evo bindings, my DINs pinned at 10 on those, and those felt as stable as any Alpine binding I've ever been on. So day one check mark on those bad boys. All in all, awesome day. This route actually is on Lou Dawson's Light Tours of Colorado list. And that's a book I'm going to be picking up here pretty soon, because the avalanche conditions in Colorado are just so bad right now. Talking to some professionals and locals in the area saying that this is the worst conditioned snowpack they've seen in about 20 to 30 years. Especially since I do most of my travel solo, I'm going to have a really mellow winter, probably even a mellow spring as well, until that Peace Lab stables out. And I'm going to go explore some of Lou Dawson's light tours. So check this one off of that book, Uneva Peak. It's an awesome little route, and excited for the coming weekend where I can share more content like this for planning your backcountry ski trips and gear reviews. And this gets to the part of my airy book where during a debrief you usually sit down and chat with the group that you went with, but Drew Carter split early at the parking lot, and I don't have anyone to debrief with after solo trips. So if you do have experience in the backcountry, I am more than happy to hear what you have to say, what you think about my plan, what went right, what went wrong, and your experiences in the Colorado area overall. So I'd appreciate any feedback that you have for me. always looking to learn. And until next time, you guys have a great time. Stay safe and try to challenge yourself with something new every day. See ya.